Hey, it's August 29th. We're going to take a look at the fruit trees in the backyard. This here is my Harold Delight pear. Did really well this year. We've harvested all the fruits, but it probably had close to a bushel's worth of pears on there. Some of them really large and really tasty. It did great this year. This is my Wealthy apple. It's never done very great. It's loaded with apples this year, but a lot of them are kind of a little bit diseased or insect scarred. So some really large fruits here. Hoping this will be one of its better years. They're a September apple, so they should be ready in the next couple of weeks. Lots of fruits, but some of them are pretty gnarly. And some diseases too. This apple tree does get a lot of different diseases. Cedar apple rust pretty bad. You can see the spores on the leaves here, cedar apple rust. And some of them are just kind of scarred, different issues. Got an Asian pear over here, which is Chijuro. Planted a brand new one this year, which is a 4-in-1. It's going to be a couple years yet, but it has Najisiki, Shinseki, Kosui, and one that's unlabeled. This one's Chijuro. It's a couple years older. The tree's never really grown much. Just put on a little bit of growth this year, off center, but it always does fruit. Lots and lots of pears every year. Not as many this year. This will be ready mid-September. One of my favorite fruit trees. The pears never have any issues with insect damage. Taste great. I really like growing Asian pears. It's the Honeycrisp apple. It fruited last year. One of the only apples that did fruit last year. And so this year it's not growing any fruits. I'll show the kiwis. I don't often show them, but there's one cluster of fruits up here that's pretty good. You can see them all. They're the size of a green grape. But they'll be ready in October. They're quite good. Had some problems. It doesn't really love this climate here, but it does survive every year. There's 2 females and a male, and there's actually a different variety over there, a female Geneva kiwi. It hasn't fruited yet. Got some grapes over here. These are Valiant grapes. Good tasting purple grape. It does get a lot of diseases though. You can see all the grapes here. A lot of them are diseased. There's good grapes in there, but you just have to kind of pick through them. You can't just take the whole cluster and use it. And then the other one we have down here is a K Gray. So it starts about here, that's its trunk, and then it goes all the way down the side of the garden. Big clumps of green grapes. They'll be ready in a couple of weeks as well too. I do often have troubles with the yellow jackets eating them. I'll be complaining about those a bit today. Lots of yellow jacket pests. Here's my blueberries. There's 3 of them here. I've got different beds all over. This one still has some fruits on it, so I still have the bird net up. It's the Williams Pride apple. It's basically done now. It was ready over the last week and a half. Really large apples. There's a couple left here. Dark color, really large apples. A lot of need to be polished up. Get that bloom on there. Good apples. Actually, that one wasn't good. There's another one here. Yeah, quite an early apple, and pretty good for an August apple. Come around here. This is my 6-in-1 apple tree. Grafted over 6 different types onto it. All of them are bearing really well this year. We've got Macoun here. Huge apples. Another theme about today will be the overbearing. I tried to thin these. It just did not do enough. You can see the branches are all weighed down. This one's covered in apples and it's weighed down. This is Pitmasis and pineapple. They're small little apples. You can see the size of this one here. That's about the average size. It's supposed to have a pineapple taste. Ashmead's kernel up here. Lots of Ashmead's kernels coming on. Bigger than I've had in the past. Tons and tons of fruits. The branches are laying down. Again, I tried to thin these as best as I could, but I didn't do a good enough job. You'll see here in a minute. This is ambrosia. I've got a stake up here to try to hold it up. But the gala over here has got 2 branches and one of them is snapped off from the weight. Snapped right off. Probably had 60 apples on it. They're close to being ripe. You can see the colors about there, but just not quite the sugars yet. We've been cutting them into slices and dehydrating them. They're okay for that. They needed about 2 more weeks. There's tons of apples on the ground, so that's depressing. You can see the one branch on the right is still good, but the left branch is snapped off. Lots of galas, and then the ambrosias here is one of my favorite apples now. They haven't colored up yet too, so they're a later September apple. My biggest tree is the Golden Delicious apple tree. Completely loaded with apples, and it has a biennial problem, so I know I'm going to be paying for this next year. The branches are almost down to the ground. Hoping we don't get a giant windstorm that will really, you can just feel the weight to these branches. And there's so many apples in there. Most of these, I've got a secondhand apple press. I'm going to try to make most of these into cider. We'll get past the apple tree here. This is a Akane apple. Quite large apples. Brilliant red. Usually red the last week of August and first week of September. So these are about ready. This is a semi-dwarf apple tree, but it's still even quite small for a semi-dwarf. I'm sure it's almost 10 years old, and it's just always stayed small. Really large fruits is not a lot, but that allowed it to make large fruits. Here I've got my quince tree, and it's the first time it's fruited. It's only a couple of years old, maybe 4. And yeah, I've never had a quince before, so looking forward to that this year. They're sizing up nice. Still green. I think these will probably be ready in October. It's kind of interesting. Well, I did want to show this grape too. This is on the back fence here. This is Somerset. These are perfectly ready. Eventually I'll get this up and off onto a trellis so it's not down here in the grass, but they're really small. They're seedless, but they really have an intense strawberry flavor. It's very good. Yeah, so we'll get that up on a trellis and get it away from that damp grass down there, and it'll be doing well. The Burbank tree, Burbank plum, just about ready now. You can see I've had to double net these. So they're in little bags. And that's to keep the wasps off, but then it's in a larger bird net too. I've just built a frame around this, temporary frame, put a large bird net over it. I've got 2 different types of pest problems. The birds, which will peck through those bags, they peck right through them and ruin the fruit. But I've also got a lot of yellow jacket wasps. So if you just put the bird net up, they'll come through and chew holes in the fruit. So to get some of these softer fruits, you have to double net it, which is a real pain. My Shiro plum here had a really large crop on it this year. It's typically ready in mid-August. We were gone on vacation for 2 weeks, and when we got back, the fruits weren't ready yet, but the birds had pecked holes in almost every one and ruined them, so didn't get any Shiro plums despite a large crop. Well, I just wanted to show the raspberries here too. It's a big raspberry bed of fall gold raspberries. And these are my favorite raspberries. They're really good. An intense orange color. and they have a mango type taste. It's very tropical like taste. And they fruit twice a year, so they fruit in early July and then again now here into September. Some of these fruits are really large. Really great taste. I've got a whole bed of these now and they're just starting to turn ripe. It's my newer blueberry bed. They did all fruit this year, but not a lot of fruits. They're still quite small. But the Haskap bed back there, I've made a separate video about those when they were ripe. It's the Toka plum. There are some fruits in there. It's a North American hybrid plum. They're tasty. Not a ton of fruits this year. This is the Mount Royal European plum. Completely loaded with fruits. It's been getting some brown rot. Especially where the plums touch each other. They tend to both rot. Been picking those off. But there's still tons of fruit on this tree. And it should be ready in 1 to 2 weeks, I would say. The cherries. This is a white gold cherry tree. It's just a couple years old. Cherry trees grow so fast. We did probably get about 40 cherries off this one this year. I had netted it and that worked well. The van cherry had a pretty good crop too, but it's just a series of disasters there with birds getting in through the net and basically eating all the cherries, so we got very few out of that big tree. It's really tough to net that tree that large too. This is black ice plum. It's quite old and getting to be large, and it did flower, but none of the fruits made it through to ripening. It didn't have very many fruits to start with. Been a little bit disappointed in that. Such a large tree has barely fruited yet. It's the Harold Diamond peach tree. It's getting to be quite a large tree. I have had some bad problems with peach leaf curl. Tends to lose a lot of its leaves and then regrow them in midsummer. Had a lot of peaches this year. We were gone for those 2 weeks at the end of July and into August when these were ripening, and came back. The birds had basically pecked them all and destroyed them all, so despite a large crop we didn't get to eat any. I have 2 more peach trees here. Just planted last year and they both fruited already. This is Frost. It's almost hidden by the other one. It's done now. Smaller peaches that were pretty good. Its claim to fame as being peach leaf curl resistant. So if I've got a problem here with peach leaf curl, this one should help. And then this one's still fruiting. This is Contender. It's got super large fruits. They're very red, but they're still a bit hard. And according to the guide that I bought them from, they won't be ready until mid-September. So another week or 2 to go, but really dark red color. Huge fruits. It's almost the size of your palm. Lots of them. So I'm just about to set up a bird net over this to make sure we get to eat some peaches this year. In the back bed here, we've got some hazelnuts. I really like these over the last couple of years. They've been good. You see a cluster here, and there's the nuts inside of there. Quite large. And there's a lot of them on here. They'll be ready in a couple of weeks as well too. So if you can open these up, you'll see they're just starting to turn brown now. Some up top there. I think we've got 4 or 5 different hazelnut bushes here. Different varieties. This one's a seedling variety. And some more clone varieties down there. We added irrigation and wood chips to this bed this year, so some of these plants are a bit older, but hopefully they're going to do a bit better with the added moisture of the wood chips and the irrigation line. The Saskatoon berry here, and a newer one planted this year. It grew really well. A couple shrub cherries. There's a triple crown Blackberry back here, which is done fruiting. Got to take down the nut now. It's growing on the back there. Got a spring satin apricot plum here. It's done fruiting. We only got a couple fruits through to ripening, but they were good. There's a couple little pawpaws here. We've certainly struggled. There's a KSU Atwood and a KSU Benson, I think, here, and a couple seedling varieties. Got this burlap on top to keep the sun off them a bit. They need shade for the first couple years, and they do get a lot of shade here in this part of the yard from the trees as well. And then this is all newer. We've got some gooseberries, some blueberries, a gummy berry, and some more gooseberries down here. There's some other trees out front. We've got an apricot tree out front. 3 apricot trees out front. They did really well this year. Got some great apricots. And a couple other assorted plums and things out front too. Anyways, that's a look at most of the fruit trees.